Yes, sir. We're back. We're back at it. We're back at it. And we have another special review coming live at you. And we are taking a look at, I believe it's Grimes, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, that's right.
I apologize if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but I think that's correct. But yeah, a little bit different style than we've done the last previous couple times. So we can thank one of our hosts for that. That he recommended that for us. So we'll dive right into it. We looked at the album. It was Visions. It was a, let's see, how long was that? I believe, let's see. Let me go to it. All right. So
46
this was
minutes.
a 46-minute, 13 track album. So we'll just kind of go through, initially say how we felt about it. Then we'll kind of go through our scores. I'll explain what those scores are for new listeners if you are. But yeah, I guess I'll start it off. Um, Overall, I think it was a pretty decent listen. Um, I would be very, cause I did some research as I was listening to this. This came out in 2012, and there's midway through this album where I could be wrong, but I'll be very shocked to see if even Kanye didn't kind of seem like have some type of ear behind his Jesus album that came out a year later. So I wouldn't be surprised if that had any correlation. Maybe it's a stretch, but maybe not. Um, but yeah, I think overall it was a nice listen. I don't think it would be too far to say that maybe it's more on the more creative, more, I would say maybe psychedelic, more spiritual side. So yeah, I would say that. I actually think, as far as me, if you're doing, say, housework, or if you're doing, I actually listen to this type of music when I'm playing video games, and that's what it kind of reminds me of, kind of like that fantasy dream-like type of space. So I could see that being a factor on why she's probably so popular. So yeah, those are my initial thoughts. Pretty decent listen all the way through. I'll let Paul go ahead and speak about his.
Yeah, I really like this album. This is, I think, my favorite Grimes album. I really like all of them, but I think this edges out as my favorite. I think it's just like it's such an easy listen. Like I can always just go back and listen to this album. Like all the different sounds blend together, perfectly, in my opinion. Uh, and it's crazy how well it is, considering how rushed it apparently was. Considering she made it in like 3 weeks. Uh, and it's just uh yeah.
Okay, perfect, perfect. What about you, Jay?
So sorry for the voice, guys. Kind of lost my voice. I've been sick for the last 2 to 3 days. But yeah, my opinion is going to be a little different, I think, than you guys on this one. I personally did not like this one very much. Um, I don't know if it's her voice or the kind of collection of the sounds on a lot of these songs, but it's just, I don't know, trying to listen through this. Normally, when I'm listening through albums, it starts to get a little bit better as I listen through it each time. I don't know. I feel like I was just getting a headache through a lot of this stuff. I know it's more psychedelic, different vibes. Production wise, it actually wasn't bad. Um, Maybe it's just, I don't know. Something wasn't clicking for me with it. And obviously, we can get into it when we go into the scores. But yeah, this definitely was not one of my favorite listens. So I'll let you take it.
Gotcha.
We can dive into the scores if you want.
Yeah, so it's kind of good that we all kind of have a little bit different. You know, it seems like Paul really enjoys it. Dron looks like you were on the total opposite side of it. And I actually did really, I wouldn't say I really, really loved it, but I did enjoy some of it. So we can get into these scores. And again, I'll just kind of go over it so people are aware. So we did kind of alter the way we score these categories. So we have experience score, which is the total after we total all those numbers up together. So the first one is going to be productions and sounds. So how was the production? How did it sound sonically to you? And that's going to be out of 10. So 0 to 10 scale on that one. Then we have lyrics and flows. So how were the lyrics? Did it mean anything to you? How were the flows? Did they change it up at all? That type of stuff there. Again, similar 0 to 10 scale there. Peaks and valleys. So this one's interesting. So it's kind of, did the peaks, you know, were there more peaks on the album that outweighed, you know, the downside of it? So kind of look at it as, it'll still be a scale of 0 to 10. If it's on the higher end, that just means that you believe that it had a lot of great tracks on here. And it wasn't, just maybe one or two songs. There was a lot of great songs on there, and it didn't drop off, theoretically. And if you rate it low, it means that you didn't really think it had, that much of a peak, or maybe it only had one good song and it dropped off. Cohesiveness, same thing, 0 to 10. That's going to be just how did it mesh together? Did it sound like it fit as an album, or did it just sound all over the place? And then X Factor, we'll kind of save that for the end, but that's just kind of, our own bias kind of opinion towards it. So I'll start it off. So production and sound, I'll just kind of say that I think that probably is, more heavily, I wouldn't say carry her music, but I would say it's very influenced on the sound that she has. I think a lot of people actually listen to her music because it meshes well with the sounds and the different type of production that's on it. So I would say production, I would probably give it higher up to like an 8. Yeah, I like the production on it. Now the lyrics and flows, I'm not. I mean, I don't think people are really listening to her for the. I mean, some people definitely are probably listening to her for the lyrics, but me personally, I'm not listening to her for the actual lyrics. I'm more so on the tone and kind of the way it sounds, just off of first listen without diving too deep into what she's saying. So lyrics and flows, I'll give that probably around like a 2. So that's going to be on the lower end for me. Peaks and valleys. So this was interesting. I would actually give this one about a 6. And the reason I give this one a 6 is I actually do enjoy. When I first listened through, I enjoyed about 2 songs on there really heavily, and the other ones were just kind of like a lot of them started to sound kind of the same. But going through again, there actually was a couple other ones that I think that definitely kind of caught my attention, but it wasn't anything crazy. But I don't think it necessarily dropped off because I don't really think anything on it was necessarily just terrible. But I don't think it just was anything that just stood out crazy. So I'll just keep that one at around a 6. And cohesiveness, that one's kind of funny because there is a stage in the album where I do think that some of the songs do kind of sound alike. And I don't know if that's, you could say that's cohesiveness to a certain extent. um, but I don't know. For that, I would probably say, because I would say as an album altogether, I think it meshed pretty well. So I'll probably give that one an 8. Yeah, I'll give that an 8. So if I go back over, I got production and sounds at 8, lyrics and flows at, that's a 2.
Yeah.
Oblivion's at 2. Peaks and Valleys at 6, and then Cohesiveness is going to be at an 8. And again, we'll save X Factor for last, so you can go ahead with yours, Paul.
Before we go, what were your favorites? Because you mentioned that you ended up liking like 4 of
Yeah,
them. What were they?
yeah. So I'll say initially my favorite song on here was Oblivion, but then I went to her most played songs, and that's like one of her most played, which is no surprise because when I heard it, it sounded pretty mainstream. But it caught my attention right away. It was something that I was listening to while I was playing the game. So that kind of was my initial listen. So it probably I would heavily into it. But yeah, Oblivion, and then I really did like what it Skins. I do like that song. Whatever weird reason, or her voice changes it. I don't know. I kind of think it meshes well with the sounds in the background.
Hmm.
So Skin, and then I do like Genesis, but I think Oblivion's a little bit better. And then the songs I was talking about with the Kanye comparisons with like Yeezus and things, like I think like 8, and then was it I can't pronounce. Yeah, thank you. There
Ambient.
we go. Now, those two songs in particular, I was just like, I don't know. I just started hearing a little bit of Yeezus in that, but like I said, it could be just a crazy stretch, but I don't know. That's just where my mind went. But yeah,
Yeah, I think Kanye and Grimes were hanging out. I can't remember when. I think it might have been him and Elon, and Grimes was there. But I would not be surprised. I mean, Kanye listens to a bunch of different stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if he got some inspiration from this somehow. Uh, among all the other stuff he listens to. Uh, but for
correct.
me, uh, yeah, I really like this album. So starting off with productions and sound, uh, I had to get like a solid 9. Just I think uh, everything out here sounds great. I think there's a few songs with like sounds that are kind of like abrasive to like the overall uh, album, but like it doesn't detract from the overall song. I don't feel like. Uh, so I can't give it 10 because of that. But overall, I think just everything sounds great on here, and all the different experimentation and stuff. It really gets you like in like a flow state while listening to this. At least for me, lyrics and flows. Uh, y- yeah, I wouldn't really say this is a big lyric album, but I do have to detract because I mean, especially after listening to her later music, it's obvious that uh, she's not really she didn't really have lyrics in mind for a lot of the stuff. Like she's mostly using her voice as like an extra instrument instead of saying anything because a lot of the lyrics are nonsensical or they don't lead anywhere or mean anything. Uh, So for it's like it doesn't detract from anything, but like just because of the what the music is going for. But I mean, it's also not very good lyrics, I guess. Genesis is probably the best you get, lyric wise, where a song actually has a lyrical meaning behind it. Uh, or Oblivion, I mean, not Genesis. So for that, I'll have to give it a 3. Um, Peaks and Valleys, I think this album has a couple different peaks. I don't think there's really any valleys on it, but I think obviously the main peak is Genesis and Oblivion. Uh, I think that's like one of the greatest like, 8 minutes in music. Just like you really just get sucked in with those two songs. I feel like, and those like I think are two most popular songs, so it makes sense. And I think and I have like a love hate relationship with 8 because by itself the song is fine, but I think like coming off of Oblivion is like super abrasive and like really like takes you out of like the trance those songs kind of put you in. To where like it immediately like makes you not like it, but when you listen to it by itself, it's fine. Uh, you get Circumambient, which is also great. It just leads right in. I think it's another peak of all these songs, especially Valve Equal Space and Time. Another of my favorites. And probably my second favorite song of the album, Be a Body. My first being Oblivion. Be a Body is just great. Like it's that 2 minute mark where like the beat switches and then all the different sounds come in. It sounds great. That I love listening to that song. Uh, and from there, the album kind of like slows down, and I think it ends very well. Especially leading into Skins and Know the Way. So for peaks and valleys, I have to give it an 8. There's not really too many detractors on here. Cohesiveness, yeah, the album is also really cohesive. Like there's a bunch of different sounds, but they all mesh together, and it doesn't sound like you're listening to something that is, not on the album. Like the biggest, like the jarriness or abrasiveness is from 8, but that's just because the song before it was Oblivion, and not so much that it just doesn't belong on the album. So cohesive, I'll give it a 10. Uh, yeah.
Okay. We got it at 10, so we'll have to tally that up here at the end. We'll just have to remember that score. We can go ahead with your scores here, Jay.
Okay, so bear with me. Productions and sounds, like I have no issue with the production on this album. I guess that's probably my biggest thing is, again, I don't know if I just don't like her voice or what, but I feel like it would have been better without her on it singing and just with the production on a lot of this tracks. So I'll probably give production and sounds a 7. Um, good. That's kind of what I would consider it. Nothing crazy, but good production. Lyrics, flows. I kind of take lyrics and flows on an album like this, and I piece it with singing, her voice, stuff like that, right? Because it's not obviously every album we listen to isn't going to have like bars and lyrics and stuff like that. And so, as I've mentioned a bunch, I was not a fan, so I'm going to go 1 on that. I don't know. Like I said, just my takeaway from it. Peaks and valleys. I don't think there is a song that I'm going to go back to on this. I will agree that the first 3 tracks, I would say, are probably the best on the album when it comes to just listening wise. And I get what both of you guys are saying with, just kind of vibing out and you kind of get lost in it, which I guess is the point. But man, they just seem to drag. And I was kind of not listening through, but looking at the times on each of these songs, and I'm like, some of these songs felt like much longer than what they are, which, in some cases could be a good thing. For me, it wasn't. Yeah, peaks and valleys. Yeah, I don't really think there's going to be anything I'm gonna come back to on this, unfortunately. So I don't think it. The valley for me, I would agree with you on that. Pause 8. The minute that comes on, I think that song might have been the one that gave me a headache specifically. And we just listened to this whole thing again, guys, together. So 8 might have been the one that did that. Skin actually isn't bad. Like I actually like her in that bag more than I did all the rest of this stuff, maybe in the slower type of vibe. So I'm gonna give peaks and valleys a 2. Again, not just didn't really vibe with me. Cohesiveness is interesting because I feel like as an overall project, it flows well together, right? I don't think other than 8, which I think should probably just be taken off of this album. The rest of it sounds, I won't say similar, right? But it sounds cohesive, right? So again, I'm probably gonna give that a 7. Good, not great, right? Not anything that's like, oh my god, that flowed into the next song or this. I don't know, right? But yeah, no, I thought the cohesiveness was fine. So for my X factor, I'm going to go negative on this. I know people that are probably Grimes fans are looking at me like, "What's wrong with this dude?" It just gave me a headache.
Your
Like
opinion.
again, I mean, I listened to this. I think I was driving to Indianapolis, and I was just like, I had to stop listening to it. I forgot what song I had to cut it at, but it was like maybe it was "Be a Body" or "Color Moonlight," and I was just like, man, I have a headache. And maybe it's what you mentioned, Paul. Just a lot of like the different sounds. It's probably more background music than it is like how I listen to my music. So normally I have my music and I'm blasting and I'm listening to the music, and I just had a headache, dude. I'm gonna go -5 on this. Simply because again, I don't think there's a track I'm gonna come back to. And I feel like unfortunately, I feel like without her on it, like the production itself was good, but I don't know if it was her voice or just maybe the conflicting sounds. Or it sounds. I think maybe Paul, you mentioned like shroom music. I think it was shroom music or drug music. maybe I needed to go like smoke something. I don't know. But, and I can guarantee you, like if we went out and it was in a different vibe, I might have different feelings on it. But normally when I'm listening to music, I'm just I'm in it one on one and just kind of vibing to it. So yeah, that's mine. -5 on that. And Jarrell, I guess we can kick it to you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So the last one here was the X Factor. We kind of wanted to save that for last because that kind of gives us a chance to say if there is an X Factor, if you had any type of bias at all, um, and if you have any type of anything else that would make you like or dislike either the artist or the project for whatever reason. For me, X Factor.
Jarrell, you know why we
Yeah,
did that, right?
yeah. Go ahead and explain.
So
Yeah.
and again, I'm gonna try not to talk too much. My voice is terrible. I'm sorry, guys. I truly believe everybody has bias. And when everybody's giving albums ratings, scores, their experience with it, whatever, like there's an inherent bias to that. And so we wanted to add this X Factor portion just for you to essentially be as biased or opinionated as you want to be based on whatever criteria you want to set for it. A good example is, anybody knows me, I'm a big Drake fan. Almost anything he drops, I'm going to like it. I don't care, right? A lot of people will look at me like, okay, whatever. But I understand that I have that bias. And so when I'm rating an album or giving my experience score on it, I want you guys to understand that that's a part of it. And so that's the reason we added the X factor to it, is to try to give you that space to say, okay, I know where my biases are. If I have them, if not, then okay. But I know where my biases are, and this is how they affect my score.
And that it's okay for it to be that way as well. It's just essentially admitting that that's what it is. So yeah, that's a good explanation. That's why we added that into that. And for me personally, there's a little bit of bias for me just because am a fellow artist myself. So whenever I see people trying to go outside the box a little bit as far as sounds, now I know she probably has a team, but I mean I'm giving her probably most of the credit because she's the artist. Um, and I could see some of, like, for instance, just like I said, the correlation with Kanye. I could see some of that innovative type of trying to push boundaries with certain sounds, trying to mesh it together. So when I see things like that, I'm always going to appreciate it probably a little bit more than the average person. So my X factor alone is going to just come from, certain things like that. Just hearing certain different sounds and saying, well, I haven't heard that before. But I don't know. I'm just trying to think because I was going to say a four initially. I would say probably. I would say that 'Cause I think the X Factor it goes up to 10, but it can go -5 or -10 as well? I can't remember.
They can go all the way to -10.
-10. Okay, cool. So yeah, so I'll leave mine at a 5. That's gonna be my X factor, because I do have a little bit of bias, but it's not enough to push me to initially just enjoy it just off of that. So I'll keep it at a 5. I'll give it up to you, Paul.
Yeah, my X Factor is gonna be higher. I mean, just that today as we record this, the Spotify Wraps came out, and I was looking at Stats FM. Shout out to that app because it's better wrapped. But and yeah, I was looking at just my albums just over the lifetime of me on Spotify, and this album's actually like my number 4 most listened. Uh, so uh, because of that, obviously I like it a lot. So uh, and I just love music that's experimental and tries new things, and uh, I think Grimes does that a lot in pretty much all her albums. I think this album has like the most character from everything she's made. Uh, and I won't give it a perfect X Factor of 10, just because like of my love hate relationship with 8. Uh, it just depends on if I like it or not at the time. But uh, I will give it a 9 because yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite albums.
Very, everybody's up to their own opinion, so nobody can really, be upset with any opinion, whether it's good or bad, because every listener is different and every experience is different. And that's why this is the experience score. So I did tally up mine. I did know, so I think what I had production at 8, lyrics and flows at 2, so that's at 10. And then I had peaks and valleys at 6, so 16. Cohesiveness, I did say 8, I believe. So what was that, 24? And then X Factor, I said 5. So I'm looking at 29 out of, what is that, 50?
50. Yeah.
Yeah. So take that as you want. Yeah. What is I'm not sure exactly remember what yours was again, Paul.
Yeah, I had it at 39.
39.
After all mine tally up. Yeah.
So
Drawn at 12.
39, drawn at 12. So as you can see, just based off of that, so 39 out of 50, that's actually pretty high. With the X Factor, the lyrics flows, and everything into it. So it's safe to say that you really enjoyed this album. I was kind of in the middle, it looks like, with 29. So that's safe to say that. And that's accurate from kind of what our initial thoughts. And then Duran, from him, it looked like he just didn't really sit well with it. It's just not his style. And there's nothing that, gravitated towards him where he's going to go back to it and really, want to listen to it. So that kind of concludes that as far as the experience score. So that's why we like to do this, just so we get a little bit of a taste of, people's own experience. Because we all have different styles, especially the 3 of us. So that's why we're able to kind of give different artists. And this was the first time we did an artist like that. That was a little bit different than the last 2. So the next one, we'll have a new artist for you as well. We haven't decided yet exactly who it's going to be, but it'll be somebody interesting as well for you. That way we'll be able to take a listen, dive into it the same way we did this one as well. Yeah, that's going to be Grimes. That was Visions we went through. And for all the Grimes fans, again, don't take it the wrong way. We didn't think everything was amazing. You know how some fans are. But overall, I think it was a good experience to go through our album. So I think that'll wrap up that review, and we'll be with you next time.
Hit him.